Well, I hope you enjoyed that. This video is about speaking in tongues, and that wasn't it. I wanted to talk about this topic because someone always asks me about speaking in tongues, and I wanted to hop on and talk about it because it is a hot ticket item to talk about because people are really into speaking in tongues. But let's talk about it for a second. Right now, the people who are really speaking in tongues are a lot of the Pentecostal churches, a lot of the churches that are very much old school, as it were. But it's interesting to me when I hear about these churches and how their parishioners all speak in tongues. What's interesting to me about it is you ask them, well, what did you say? And they say, I don't know. I have no idea. But they were speaking in tongues. Of course we didn't understand. It was an angelic language. And they start talking about how when they speak in tongues, things just noises and words start coming out of their mouths and they don't understand them and all this stuff. That goes completely against the Bible. That goes completely against the Bible. Because in the Bible, speaking in tongues was not being able to understand each other. It was exactly the opposite. Speaking in tongues meant that they could speak to people of all nations and understand each other. So if they're truly speaking in tongues, they should be able to speak to a Portuguese person and not be able to speak in any way, shape, or form Portuguese, but have that Portuguese person completely understand them and completely understand them when they reply. That's what the biblical speaking in tongues is. It's not this gibberish that's spoken. It doesn't come out as this sacred language and all these things. These are dogmatic things of the Pentecostal churches, right? But when you look at the actual biblical history, it's about understanding each other. It's about coming to that place and conversing and communicating. In my USO days, I was traveling with a very classic ugly American. If you didn't understand English, he spoke louder. If you still didn't understand him, he got mad and he stormed off, right? He was a jerk and still is a jerk today, by the way. But the interesting thing about it is that in those moments when he was doing that, I was standing behind him, having a complete communication with this person who I did not speak their language. I was doing things like, I was completely and that person was with me, and he stormed off, and I was like, and we had a complete communication. We completely understood each other. Didn't speak any of the same languages, right? I think honestly, when you travel the world, you start to find out that languages are very quickly learned. You wander the streets of Cairo, and you see the little kids in the streets, and they're yelling out "bonjour," and they're yelling out "hello," and they're trying to find out which language you speak, and then you turn and answer, and then they come and talk to you to try to sell you their wares. They have learned all the languages in the streets. They learned how to speak these languages in the streets. I think that when we open ourselves up to communication becomes much easier. Right? I used to work in landscaping many years ago, and I didn't speak Spanish, but I could speak with all of the workers who were all Spanish, who were all from Mexico. Had great conversations with them, but never understood half of what either one of us was saying. To me, it's an interesting animal, the concept of speaking in tongues. In spirituality, there's one thing that's something that's very obvious, is what we believe we see. What we believe we see. Padre Pio had stigmata, and his stigmata was the palms of his hands and the tops of his feet. My regression tells me that it was the wrists and the sides of the ankles. But Padre Pio had only ever seen the pictures and the statues and the with it on the palms of the hands and on the tops of the feet on the little pedestal thing. The reality of it is that he saw what he believed, right? People who see apparitions of Mary, most of them are Catholic. Well, why would that be? Because the Catholic faith leans into Mother Mary in a very big way. And so when you look at the expression of their belief, of course it's going to show up as Mary. When you look at the expression of belief in speaking in tongues, and you're taught in your churches that speaking in tongues is the next level of spirituality, when you start speaking in tongues because that's your belief, you believe you've reached the next level of spirituality. And that next level of spirituality is literally the space of you going to the next level of faith. So speaking in tongues is really just a product of a person's belief, what they believe, and specifically their belief in an external God, their belief that they are not one with God. And when they are striving for that level up experience, they start to speak in tongues. And then it becomes this amazing experience of speaking in tongues, and people start to speak in the gibberish around them. But when you ask them what they said, they have no clue. They have no idea. And, biblically, that can't be speaking in tongues because it goes completely against what speaking in tongues is. But on another level, it totally proves that your belief is creative. It totally proves that what you believe to be your truth is shown to you. That's why I believe it goes back to that idea of being born again, or being becoming like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. Going back before all those beliefs, before all those ideas are in your head, back to that set point, that clean slate, as Joshua mentioned several times in the text, right? Coming back to that clean slate without belief, without the ideas of anybody else, and just you and Father as one. Father, Abba, God. Speaking in tongues is simply a product of a belief in an external God, and a belief in a hierarchy, and a belief that the church itself is telling them is part of their spiritual growth. And so they start speaking in tongues, even though they're not really speaking in tongues. They're just having a belief experience. And that's my thought on speaking in tongues. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.